I'm doing introduction here on behalf of the Ohio Society of CPAs. I'm our Vice President of Government Relations, and we're really excited to roll out this partnership with Max Training. The legislature created it. It was signed into law by the governor back in 2019, but it's really been picking up steam here lately, and we want to get members up to date on this. And we're currently, this is the second of two webinars that we're doing on this. It's the same content as the first one. So if you did the first one, it's going to be the same content today. But the advantage right now is the fifth of six open registration periods for TechCred is opened up this week. So there's six of them a year, every other month. And we're in one right now through the end of September. And then the next one will be in November. And so we really want members to take advantage of this just because it's currently open right now. And our presenters will roll this out with the information that you need to do to take advantage of this program. The one thing just from our standpoint is Amber from our learning team had gone through several of the classes that Max offers, and those are available for CPE credits for our members. That's something that's very unique to this program. You'll be able to get the funding from it from the state government. You apply for it, take the classes, get it on the back end, and then you'll also get CPE credit for it as well. So it's attractive for our members because of the credit, but also for your clients. This is open pretty much to every profession, and we really want our members and their clients to take advantage of it. I'm going to kick it, like I said, to the 3Ds here, and they have all the information, but I'll be on if there's any questions. Please put those in the Q&A, and our knowledgeable presenters here today will try to answer as many of those as they can get to. Thank you to our team at Max Training. Denise, I'll kick it over to you.
Thank you, Greg. That was a great introduction, and I'm just impressed at how much you retained from the last time. So thanks for that. I am super excited to be here today to present to you. I love this TechCred program, as the state knows, and we've been a big advocate of this program. I'm Denise Spartak. I'm the president and CEO of Max Technical Training. With me is Dustin Miller, and he'll be helping navigate some of the questions, and he'll be chiming in and helping me along with this presentation. So remember, please interrupt us whenever you want to ask a question. Our mission at Max is to cultivate an ecosystem that empowers tech education for all. So this program with the Ohio Society of CPA is exactly just what we're trying to do, is to make sure that what we do is broadened. We're not just a geek school. Max provides training, everything from Microsoft Office to cybersecurity, to programming, to Java, to data analytics and AI. So we provide that training for corporates, nonprofits, government entities. We provide that training in private engagements where we go to the client site or we do it virtually, or we have a whole open enrollment schedule, about 400 plus courses that individuals can sign up for individually. We also have a career program for individuals entering the IT field. So think about folks who are unemployed and then need a job, or those that want to go from, my favorite example is we had a pool guy that went through a coding boot camp and now is a software developer at Western and Southern. So we have a whole gamut of programs. We've been around for 26 years. So we've seen it all. We've been through a lot. And I like to say I started the company when I was 15. With that, I do want to introduce a special guest that we have today, Derek Chancellor, and I'll let Derek come on and say a few words about TechCred. Derek has been a great advocate of the state. He's the regional liaison for the Ohio Lieutenant Governor John Husted, and he's become a good friend of Max. He's come to a lot of our events, and he's a big advocate of TechCred, and he's also available to you to answer any questions. And I invited him here to keep us straight and answer any questions, and also so that you have a connection to him. Derek.
Thank you, Denise. And yeah, Max has been a tremendous champion of the TechCred programs. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all today about it and answer any questions you might have. I'm no expert, but as the Southwest Ohio regional liaison for the Lieutenant Governor, Max is in my service area. So yeah, it's in a lot of events that you all host, and I certainly appreciate that, Denise. But yeah, I think the old adage, as the old adage goes, if you can't explain something simply, you don't know it well enough. Most simply put, TechCred is a state-funded reimbursement program for training. The state of Ohio will reimburse employers directly for up to $2,000 per industry-recognized technology credential. And that's not per employee, that's per credential. So we'll get into the details of the program. And I think, Denise, you're going to be leading the presentation, but happy to be here answering any questions you have. As Greg mentioned, the program has existed since 2019, since the administration took office. And it's really the brainchild of Lieutenant Governor John Husted's. He brought it with him from his days at the Dayton Area Chamber, I believe, and he's at the county level in government. It's a great program. We've taken a lot of feedback over the years and implemented some industry-driven changes and improvements over time. But in the same breath that we get those suggestions for improvement, folks are saying how great it is to use the program. It's a great resource, and they're coming back time and again to use it. I have some numbers here as well. We just hit a milestone the last reporting period. So over 100,000 credentials have been funded through this program as of July, and that's from May's round. So we'll talk more about the application periods, but there's always an application period around the corner, which is another great aspect of the program. Over 100,000 credentials, so that's industry recognized technology credentials. Over $100 million in funding, and over 3,000 unique Ohio employers have been awarded funding since this program is inception in 2019. A lot of money has been going into this program. The General Assembly has an appetite to fund TechCred time and again. It's been funded for the next fiscal year as well. And because there's such a demand, and it's really an effort to modernize our economy at large, and it's a win-win across the board. Individuals get the skills they need to compete in this modern economy. Employers obviously get those upskilled individuals. It's an effort. It's a great recruitment and retention tool. And it's benefited employers. And of course, training providers have a stake in the game as well. And it's been really an impetus of this program has been getting training providers on the same page as employers, which I think from the beginning, you mentioned you started this company when you were a teenager, Denise, but I think you've seen changes, and it's been, I think you've had an industry-driven organization, but that's not always the case with training providers. And so this has been one of the results of this program has been training alignment, and now training providers are really offering exactly what industry needs. Again, happy to answer any questions you have about the program, and I think you'll get into the numbers a little later in the application process as well. It's open to any Ohio industry, and it has to be an Ohio company. You have to do business here in the state. Only Ohio residents are eligible, but it's open to any industry. Local governments are eligible, and so even training providers can use the program as an employer. They have to use an outside training provider to do that. But really easy program to use, and again, industry driven, which is exciting. So you don't hear that a lot about government programs, but this one is really quick and easy to use. And so it breaks the stigma. And so we're excited about it. And they say another old adage, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. The state of Missouri passed a bill last year identical to TechCred, to fund a program identical to TechCred. And they didn't beat around the bush about it. And they lauded our efforts and the lieutenant governors. So I think that speaks volumes that other states are picking up on this and how successful it's been in our state, and they're replicating that in theirs.
Thank you, Derek. Derek, that was great. In fact, that leads right into my next slide, which is to talk a little bit about what is TechCred. And this is our agenda today. But let me first talk about what is TechCred. And Derek go back to that original slide. Thank you. What is TechCred? And the program was started, like you've heard from Derek and Greg, it was started in October of 2019. And like Derek said, it really did break the stigma of these state programs, because I've seen many programs come and go throughout my, let's say, 30 years in this business. And this one is the best I have seen. There were some that were really horrible. And this is a program that's great, and it keeps getting better. Let me read to you exactly what's on the TechCred site. The Ohio TechCred program is a workforce development initiative designed to help Ohioans earn industry-recognized, technology-focused credentials. The funding for this program comes primarily from state resources allocated by the Ohio General Assembly. Specifically, the program is funded through Ohio's budget, where the state government allocates money to workforce development and education initiatives. This includes appropriations from the General Revenue Fund and other state resources aimed at supporting economic development and workforce readiness. The program may also receive support from federal funding streams dedicated to workforce training and education, though primary sources are state funds. Think about with the COVID funds, the relief funds that came in, some of those went to these funds. Ohio's TechCred program is part of a broader effort by the state's administration to boost the skills of the workforce, particularly in the technology sector, to meet the demands of employers and to support economic growth in the state. The allocation of these funds is determined by state legislative processes, including the budgetary provisions passed by the Ohio General Assembly. So we're going to run through a lot of information here. We're going to talk about the TechCred process, some of the successes that you've already heard from Derek, and some of the OSCPA courses that we can actually allocate CPEs, and of course, question and answers. We don't want you to wait for questions and answers, by the way. I've been in the education business, and I can tell you, if you chime in and ask me questions every other slide, that's great, because then I know that you're engaged and it's not as boring for me. So please chime in anytime. All right, Dustin, thank you. Okay, so here's TechCred 101. Basically, and I think that between Greg and Derek, they've alluded to this, there are 6 program periods, but the number I really want you to look at is 180,000 per year. So that's the amount of reimbursement one organization can get per year. Now, you may not need all of that. In some organizations that are very big, they're fighting over that. So 180,000 per year. This is delved into 6 program periods per year. The first one starts in January, and they're basically every other month. January, let's see if I do this right, March, May, July, September, which is the one we're in right now, and then November. In each of those program periods, you can apply for up to $30,000 per employment period, per employer, per application period. This is all hard to say. Each credential or class, and I'm going to explain later what a credential is, but don't freak out about that. It's just a class. It could be Excel for $350, or it could be an AI developer class for $3,000. But each credential can be reimbursed for up to $2,000 per credential. So let me back into this a little bit. We can have one employee take 15 classes at $2,000 each. Or we can have 15 employees take one $2,000 class in that application period. Or we can have classes that are $2,500 and the employer gets reimbursed $2,000 and they're obligated to pay that other $500. If the credential only costs $500, then the employer doesn't have to still pay $2,000. They only pay the $500 and they have $1,500 left out of that $30,000. Now you are CPAs, so I know you guys can do the math, but I wanted to see if there were any questions. I see a lot of questions coming into the chat. Any questions right now, Dustin?
Right now, the first question was, can an individual get reimbursed? And I think we'll get to that once we get to the eligibility requirements here coming up in the next slides.
All right, thank you, Dustin. All right, next slide. All right, so this is the new numbers, hot off the press, that Derek just announced. At the end of the May period, and I believe that was round 26, there were, and so this was reported in July, there were over 100,000 credentials. So that's classes that individuals in Ohio or Ohioans actually took those classes. Now, there could be one Ohioan that took 2 or 3 classes, but that's a lot of classes. And more than $100 million has been allocated towards those credentials so far since October of 2019. And what's really cool about this is like that whole flywheel, the momentum is growing. And now there's more than 3,000 unique businesses that have taken advantage of this program. That's unique. Now, those businesses, most of them are doing multiple rounds. And so the thing I actually asked Mike Cahill this today, Derek, I said, how many unique businesses are there in Ohio? Because to me, 3,000 is just a drop in the bucket compared to if there's 100,000 unique businesses in Ohio that have, let's say, over 10 employees. This is just a very small amount that know about this program and are using this program. But every program period, it continues to pick up momentum and continues to grow. So we're really excited to share this with you and hopefully with your organization and for some of you, your clients. All right, so I'm going to start to delve into some of the pieces of the TechCred process, and we'll keep getting a little more granular as we go through, and some of your questions might help guide this. So the TechCred process starts with making sure the individual that is applying on behalf of the organization has a unique Ohio ID. I have a unique Ohio ID. Dustin has a unique Ohio ID, even though he lives in Kentucky. Then there's the employer application. The employer gets into the site. There's an official TechCred site, and there's a program period. We're in one right now, where the employer actually goes in and makes an application for up to the $30,000 that could be awarded. The individuals, the Ohio residents or students or employees of that organization, then take a class and get a credential completion, or I'm going to keep replacing credential with class completion. Then once those classes are completed and paid for and everything else, there's a reimbursement process or a reimbursement application process that we'll talk about. So who is eligible? So this might answer that question that you just shared with me, Dustin. The employer has to have a physical Ohio residence. So if you're an individual and you own your own company, then and you have an address in Ohio, then you're good. You have to be registered with the state of Ohio. It has to be registered with the Secretary of State as a business in Ohio. The students have to be Ohio residents. So your employees that are taking these classes can't live in Kentucky. I have employees that live in Kentucky and Indiana, and they're not eligible for TechCred. So the employee has to be a resident or a prospective resident. So now we're trying to get our trying to get our folks from Kentucky to move to Ohio. Or it could also be someone that you're going to hire in the future. So even if you plan to hire employees in the future that will be Ohio residents, those will be eligible for this program. And then this isn't a TechCred thing. This is just something that Max has added on. The employer needs to be willing to make an upfront investment. So for example, the program, the way the program works is the employee takes the training, the employer pays for the training, and then the employer gets reimbursed. So if the employer doesn't have the funds to fund that training upfront, it could be 30 days until they get their reimbursement. If they're not in a position to do that, then this isn't a program for them. Questions? Any questions?
So there is a question right now, Denise, that what if
Okay.
what if the company is Delaware Incorporation? I'm going to assume, and Angela, you can put back into the chat, that is there a physical location of that company in Ohio? And maybe Derek, if you want to speak to that one, where maybe the original incorporation is in another state, but
Yeah.
they have a physical location and they're also registered with the state of Ohio. Will
Sure.
that company still be able to use it for those Ohio employees?
Yeah, great question. To reiterate what Denise said, only Ohio resident employees are eligible. I think that's an important point. That's a bigger issue down in greater Cincinnati where I live. A lot of folks commute across the river. You have to be an Ohio resident. So there's a little incentive to move to the heart of it all. But about the company itself, as long as the company does business in Ohio, it doesn't matter where you're headquartered. I believe a future slide, maybe the next slide, has those 3 numbers that are required to apply. Those are to prove that the organization does business in the state. So as long as you're doing business in Ohio and you have a physical address, a physical presence in Ohio, you'll be eligible.
That's the way I would answer it. So mainly having a physical address. Any other questions?
Yeah, you don't have to be headquartered here.
Right.
Not at the moment, but I think we
Okay.
may jog some more questions once we switch over to the next slide and talk about what is a credential. And you've been going back and forth with course, credential. Of course, it's in IT, especially around technology. The word credential can often mean a collection of courses into one type of certificate. I'll let you take it back over from there.
Thank you, Dustin. That's so true. And I remember when this program came out and the word credentials was floated out there, everyone, including myself, I thought, what is a credential? Like, is this something from the university or that's leaving us out or what's going on here? But really, let me read to you what the site says. The term industry recognized is number 1, means a credential that is sought or accepted by employers within the industry or sector involved as a recognized, preferred, or required credential for recruitment, screening, hiring, retention, or advancement. Technology-focused credential prioritizes the development of digital skills or STEM related technical skills for economic productivity. Examples of technology-focused credentials include those related to software development or utilization, advanced manufacturing and construction technology, data analytics, cybersecurity, broadband, 5G technology, and other emerging fields like AI, for example. And then short term. So this isn't a multi-year thing, must be completed in less than 12 months. Most of our courses are 2-3 days and is less than 30 credit hours or 900 clock hours. So I can pause for a minute there, but think about an Excel class that is 1 day. That is industry recognized, it's technology focused, and it's short term. Power BI, Python, all of those classes are industry recognized, technology focused, and short term. Any questions? You guys aren't asking very many questions. Okay.
I'm handling some of them. I know that,
Okay.
and I'm gonna
Thanks, Dustin.
I'm gonna send over some.
Yes, robotics. I see Angela asked about robotics. Yes, robotics is included.
But we did get a question about the availability of this presentation, and we will work with Chelsea to make sure there is a link to this presentation. Also, this presentation has been summarized into a 1-page PDF that's a little less cumbersome to download. And I will work with Chelsea to make sure she has those materials available to everyone that's on the presentation today.
And I believe this
Dustin,
is
it should be posted in their My OSCPA Learning Center page, like under this class. Once you go in there, it should be, you can download it there, the PDF of it.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. Okay, wonderful.
I love the interactivity. Bring it on. Okay.
Real quick, just so everybody can keep in mind, we do have a dedicated page for your organization that has the matched up courses with the CPEs, and we'll be sharing that resource in a little bit. But also, if you visit our website and you search for a course, any of the approved TechCred courses, that blue circle with the state of Ohio on it, that emblem is matched up with any course on our site that is TechCred approved. So you can always look for that icon if you have any questions about its approval.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so I know you guys are all ready to get going now. What do we need to do? So number one, identify the skills that your employees need, whether it's robotics or Excel or whatever it is. And what we've seen is the best practices that employers use is they simply start with a spreadsheet. And they put the employee names and they put the classes, and then they prioritize them. Because if you think about if you're going to spend more than $30,000 per program period, you want to make sure you're prioritizing what needs to happen first. So look at 12 to 18 months in advance and prioritize what kind of classes you want. And just by going onto the TechCred site, you'll see all the credentials and classes that are there. You can visit the Max site or just go to the TechCred site, because you're not going to see robotics on the Max site, but you'll see it on the TechCred site. So that's number one. Make sure that you have a plan. Then partner with a credential provider. Max is a credential provider. There are many other companies that are also credential providers, some that provide credentials that on topics like robotics that we don't do. Or you can even work with a provider eventually that is not listed and get them listed in there if there's some unique technical skill that you want to have part of this program. And then you apply for TechCred pre-approval. So we are in a pre-approval phase right now during the month of September, and the next one will not be until November. So we'll give you some of the pieces of what you need to do to be ready for that pre-approval. But you basically go and apply. And then you have a waiting period. Sometimes it's 45 days to 60 days. I know that the timing starts at the end of the application period. For example, the folks that applied in July have not heard back yet. And that was the end of July. So probably in the next week or so, they'll start to hear back, because we're hitting that 45-day kind of threshold, which the state has said, we're going to try to get back with you in 45 to 60 days. So depending on how many people are on vacation and how busy they are, they do have a very lean and mean team there, but they're very good. So you may not hear back right away. Then you enroll employees in the program. Now, between 3 and 4, this is a little tricky, and it really depends on your situation. Some employers do not enroll employees into the program until they're 100% sure that what they've applied for in TechCred has been approved. As the employers get more comfortable with the program, you can still apply for a program, let's say now in September, take the class during the month of September, and get pre-approved. You could get your approval, let's say in November, and then you can apply for your reimbursement. Now, I know that's very confusing, but you can go back in arrears and take the class and still get reimbursed for that class, as long as you're comfortable that you're going to get approved. Now, comfort of being approved is, there's a whole range of that. It could be that, boy, I really need that Excel class anyways, so I'm not going to worry about it, and it's only $350, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Or it could be, I've been doing this program for a while. I know that 99.9% of the time I get approval, so I'm not going to worry about it. So it really depends on where your comfort is. I would say most employers, especially when they're first starting out, they wait for that approval. Once your employees enroll in the program and take the program, you go through a process of uploading the proof of credential completion or class completion. So it's a certificate of completion that we create and other training providers create to show that you've actually taken that course. You have to prove that you paid it, and there's a few other things that you have to upload to receive reimbursement. Once you upload that information and apply for your reimbursement, that usually takes 15 to 20 days. So that's fairly fast. Questions? Yep, go ahead.
I'm going to throw a question out there on behalf of the
This
audience.
is a great side tip. Thank you,
Because
Dustin.
I was unaware of this initially when I first understood the program. What if the course that I want to take is happening in one of those off months where I'm not applying to the program and it's not going to be offered any other time within the near future, or maybe it's not scheduled and I need to jump into it? Am I able to apply for it when the program period opens, even though I've already taken it the month before?
Yeah, as long as it's the month before. So if you took a course, like let's say in May, and now you're applying for it in September, I don't believe that's eligible. But if you're taking a course now in September and you're applying in September, you can do that. Does that answer your question? I think that was hopefully clear.
And that's right.
Is that right? Thank you.
So you mentioned we're in an application period right now, which it's the full month, the first weekday to the last weekday of the month. And so for the full month of September, you have to, if you're doing training in September, you have to apply in September. But if you're between application windows, say it's October, you missed the deadline and you need to do training in October, that will be eligible in the next application for November. But it's got to be that month before, as you mentioned. That's correct.
Right.
There is one question. Does a business need to reapply every 2 months program period, or is there a one-time application?
No, you can apply every application round for another $30,000 or less than that, but you may not know what you need until that round. But it's not, and I think that was a misunderstanding for a lot of organizations. They said, I did it once. You can do it 6 times a year, every year.
Question for Derek.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Just to clarify, you do need to submit an application and go through this process. As Denise mentioned, there are thousands of pre-approved credentials on the website and a wide range of credentials at that. But you do need to submit an application for each new $30,000 cap. Dustin?
Is there a cap on the amount the state of Ohio has allocated in the state budget for reimbursement? So I guess, is there a time where this well dries up?
So it was funded in the last operating budget for the next 2 fiscal years. So it's funded through 2025. But as I mentioned, the General Assembly has an appetite to fund this program time and again because there's such a demand. We're seeing workforce shortages across industries, and it's certainly a priority of the lieutenant governors to modernize our economy. And this touch is open to any industry in the state. Construction organizations are using it for VR training. Sheriff's departments are using it for drone training, and fire departments. It's got a wide range of applications, and it's not just office jobs and office programming, but manufacturing. Time and again, it uses this program. One of the industries that uses it the most, which surprised me at first. I would have thought or tech, but because that's innately tech, but manufacturing, the impact of technology on manufacturing is the reason why manufacturing organizations are using this high volume. There's an appetite to support this program. Other states are copying us and our success and adopting this within their own general assemblies. It's funded for sure for the next fiscal year, or for this fiscal year until through 2025. And those application periods haven't formally been announced yet, but it's been every month through the end of the year. So for sure next year, but it is decided by the General Assembly ultimately. And they did fund it the last operating budget, but I guess time will tell is the formal answer.
And Derek, I remember looking at the budget when somehow I got online and I found it, because that's public records. Do you know how much is in the total budget? And I think it funds things like TechCred and IMAP and some other programs. But
yeah, I believe this was line item at $100,000. Or I'm sorry.
No, that's more than that.
$100 million in the last 2 years.
That sounds more like it. Yeah.
Yeah, $100 million for the fiscal year. And so and it's funded every operating budget. So it's an operating budget item.
There you go. And so far we just hit 100 million after about 5 years. of being in the program. So it's starting to take up momentum. So I don't think you have to worry about it running out.
Yeah, be careful with this group and leaving digits off.
Yeah, I know.
I apologize.
We have to add some additional clarity. Julie, who is in attendance, has asked, so we would have to reapply every other month or for each $30,000. So I think we're getting that when I'm applying, how often I'm applying. And I think it's just, and you guys correct me if I'm saying it wrong, but when that program period opens, if you want to use any of that $30,000 in that program period, that's when you would apply for whatever courses you want to take and the money that would go towards them. And then the next month you would not apply because it's not an open program period. But then the following month, you would not apply for the same money, for the same courses, any of that. It would all be new money and new courses that you have aligned yourself with. And you would then, yes, apply again for those specific courses and funding. Is that correct?
Yeah, let me add to that because once, and I forgot to say this, but once you get approval, so let's say you get approval for your robotics classes, you have up to 12 months to take that class. So when we have these folks apply and they create these spreadsheets, they have a column of these classes have been approved and it is going to expire in 12 months. So they know they have 12 months to use those funds. And then in the next round, let's say you apply this month for robotics, you have all the way until next year, the same time, like September of 2025, to use those funds, or really beyond that, probably October or November. By the time it's 12 months from the time you've gotten approved. And then in the next application period, you apply for more things. Now, you don't have to use all the credentials that you've been approved for. No one's going to get dinged, but the state does allocate those dollars and they set those aside for you. So it would be good if you did use those, but you don't have to use those. Nothing's bad's going to happen.
Yeah, to speak to the $30,000 number, so that's up to $30,000,
right.
and we always use that up to $30,000. That's just the cap, and you have up to $2,000 per credential. That's why we use those terms up to, and you have to reapply every application period. So it's not necessarily for every $30,000. It's just every application period you have up to $30,000 per organization to use if you like to get reimbursed.
So maybe not using the word reapply, you have a new application period so you can apply for new funds or new credentials during that period. So the ones you already got, you don't have to like reapply for those.
Right. That's a good positive way to look at it. You have an opportunity to get reimbursed for up to $30,000 every other month.
We did have one more question. And the question is, I see many Excel classes. Are there Google-based classes? The answer to that is yes. On the TechCred approved credential list, there are about 24 Google-based courses. I can tell you right now, since you mentioned Excel, that Google Sheets and Google Sheets formulas and functions is something that Max does provide as a TechCred credential. So we do have that available. So great question. And we can talk about some of the courses, Denise, if you're ready to move on to those. Yeah. The only question that's going to be for regarding the Google-based classes is these are the agreed upon courses that we're looking at now that have the CPEs attached to the course that is an approved TechCred credential. If the Google product is not on here, then that's a conversation that we can have moving forward about how do we get these as a part of this specialized OSCPA grouping.
Exactly. And so that's something that we're happy we basically learned from Amber how to apply CPEs. And this is the first group of classes that we're partnering with Ohio Society of CPAs to work through. And I think we even had our first students come through this week that need CPEs. And so we're learning the whole process and making sure they have their cameras on and all of that stuff, because we're not doing those polls because we have a mixed audience. We don't have just CPAs in our classes. But if you did a private class, that could be different. We could do polling. But right now we've started with this group of classes. So we have a group of Excel, we have Power BI, and then if you want to go to the next screen, Copilot, QuickBooks, and artificial intelligence. I believe, Dustin, is this all the courses for Ohio Society of CPA, or is this all TechCred courses?
This is just the list for OSCPA with the attached CPEs. When we get to the resources at the end of the presentation, there will be a resource for the OSCPA landing page, which has these courses listed. And then we also have our full TechCred page that for anything else anyone may be looking for will be on there as well.
But Dustin will be a good contact for you, and you'll have his contact information so he can answer any of these questions. I think we probably should keep going. All right, so we're getting into the weeds now. So when you apply, let's say you're going to go in this week, the first thing that you need is a payee ID. You may have all these other charter numbers and detail report and federal tax IDs, but the payee ID number it used to be called the supplier ID. If you're not a supplier of the state, that doesn't really make sense. So they changed the wording to payee ID number so that you can get reimbursed. So you want to go on to the TechCred site today and get your pay ID number, your Ohio ID and your pay ID, because your pay ID may take a few days to get back. And then when you apply, you want to have ready your Ohio charter number, your business detail report, that's really like a snapshot of your charter, and your federal tax ID. To get reimbursement, and I like to spend a little time on this, you need to make sure, because I want you to know this up front, you need proof of credential completion. So that's your certificate of completion from whatever provider. So at Max, we provide a certificate of completion. We send it to you in a PDF. It will also have for CPAs, it'll have the CPEs, whatever we need to have on there. Employment verification from the employee. So this is relatively new in the last 12 months from the state. The employee needs to sign a verification that they actually work for you, the employer. Itemized invoices and proof of payment. So you have to really show that, yeah, I did pay this, because they want to make sure you paid the vendor, the training provider, before they reimburse you. And then information for each program participant, their name, the last four of their social security, their date of birth, their county of residence, and their wage before or after the credential. Now we put asterisks on there because I know when this first started, everyone freaked out. You don't have to have your wages go up to get reimbursed. If you just take an Excel class, I doubt your salary is going to go up. It's really just there, and Derek, you may be able to chime in, to give the state some information on what is going on in wages over a period of time. Now, there may be some credentials or classes where someone is going in for a 4 or 5 month program, and when they come out, they will have an increase. Maybe someone learning robotics or something like that. But that doesn't mean you're not going to get approval. So if you know what their wage is, or a range, if it's $20 an hour, $50 an hour, whatever it is, you put that in, and you can put $50 an hour at the end. Any questions there? Or Derek, you want to chime in on?
No, that's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
And that's one of the changes that has been implemented over time that we'll go into. But used to be you needed the individual information of each employee, each credential earner on the front end. You don't need that anymore. You just need the name of employees, which training they're getting, which training provider, but you do need that on the back end. Again, they have to be Ohio residents.
And that's a good point that you brought up. When you're applying, you don't need to know which employees exactly you're going to be using these credentials for. Okay, next slide, Dustin. All right, any more Q&As? I think we're almost at our 11:50 time.
We're close. We're keeping good time. But Carrie that joined us today has scoured the rules when TechCred first came out. Are there any big updates since 2019, 2020, 2021? I'll let you guys take that one first. I think things have gotten easier and it's a little more simplified, and actually it's not as overwhelming, I think, as you may initially perceive. But Derek, do you want to tackle that one? Any major changes or updates?
Yeah, a few highlights. I mentioned, we reiterated that training can happen between application windows. That wasn't always the case. No training is falling through the cracks. You can do training in between application periods. Any training in October is going to be eligible in November. You don't need the individual information of each credential earner up front. You just need it on the back end now. Denise, you probably know from industry perspective, working with employers, some of the other improvements that have been made over time.
I think the best thing was that there was a rhythm, because we didn't know when the application period was going to be. And now it's every other month. We were like, when's it going to be? When's it going to be? We didn't know.
So every other month, a full month.
Yeah, and the website has gotten easier and easier to use. The user interface and things like that have definitely improved.
Okay, I got a couple more real quick because
Okay.
I want to get to our resources. I know we're getting close to our time. Don't jump off before we give you the resources, because they're going to be really helpful.
Yeah.
Can an unpaid employee qualify like an intern? Now, I know they have to be a W-9.
No, yes, you mentioned, Denise, that this is open to prospective employees and
Yeah.
prospective Ohioans. The catch there is, so it can be a great recruitment tool for that reason. The catch is they have to be fully on board W-2 earners by the time reimbursement is processed. Fully on board employees by the time reimbursement is processed after that 12-month period. So you have that 12-month clock starts as soon as you get it approved.
Right. And I do want to add, there's other programs in the state of Ohio for internships and for funding interns taking the same actual credentials. So,
yes, and IMAP is one of those programs. So unemployed, partially employed individuals, students, anyone in Ohio can earn a credential at little to no cost through IMAP as well, which Max
that's for another presentation, though.
Oh my goodness, that's a whole nother day.
Right. Yeah. Okay. What else? Do you want to go to your resources, Dustin? You're driving.
Yeah, let me go to the resources, but I
Okay.
still have a couple of other questions
we can stay on if anyone
that are coming through. Let me flip over to, so we have a landing page built specifically with the courses that we listed today in the presentation. I'm going to go to that QR code and link in just a minute, but this was designed specifically for the OSCPA. And then there are 3 resources available. There is the landing page here that is available to you, and you can scan the QR. There also is going to be a PDF that's going to be added to your learning area as well as our presentation. And just to let you know, whenever you see a QR, you can either scan it from your phone, or if you have the PDF, it is click or touch activated as well, if you don't want to try to figure out how to scan it from if you're looking on your mobile device. And then there is the Ohio TechCred page, which is the QR code in the middle. And then there's an excellent 4-page PDF guide really going through the entire process, not in a presentation form, but really just listing out everything in details. And it's a great resource guide from the state, and that's available in the 3rd QR code on the right. But for the last 2 questions, real quick, there was a mention that TechCred is available for the unemployed as well. I don't know if that statement is exactly true, because I think that may be more of a IMAP, which is a different funding source that we touched on, fit. Do I have that correct? That's not the best use of that funding.
Yeah, there's there's WIOA, there's other funds out there for unemployed. So reach out to us and we can help you with that.
But that's not a great fit for TechCred. What if it is a great question? What if an employee successfully completes the course but leaves the company before reimbursement is obtained from TechCred? Derek, you want to take that one?
Yeah, Derek, you take that one.
Sure. So the program is retroactive reimbursement. So one of the requirements on one of the slides we went over is that you have to upload proof of credential completion. So the credential must have been earned. You have to have that certificate of completion, whether it's a certificate or a certification from the training provider. So the credential has to be earned before the state will reimburse.
And the employee has to sign a certificate of employment. So as long as that employee signed that certificate of employment at the time that they took the training, I think we're okay. If they leave after the training, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so they have to be W-2 earners by the time reimbursement's processed. So you have to have proof of employment, and that's one of those requirements in one of the previous slides about individual information of each credential earner is that they have to have that employee ID number and proof of residency and all of that.
So it would be good if they were still employed when you're applying for reimbursement.
For sure.
Yeah.
Employed and a resident of Ohio, and the credential's been earned.
Yep.
I think we're about 4 minutes over, which isn't too bad. And there's Chelsea. So I guess we're on our thank you slide. And Denise, I'll let you close it down.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. We are here for you. You will have all these resources. Reach out to myself, Dustin, Derek. You have all of our information. And we love spending this time with you and happy to answer any of your questions. Get online and go into the TechCred site and just mess around there a little bit. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, you three, for coming and presenting for us. Everyone else, you did go ahead and answer all your polling questions for your CPE. Nothing you need to do further there. We'll keep this open for just another minute if you want to send any thank yous or any questions into the chat for your presenters today. If not, you are free to go, and thank you guys for joining us today. We'll just give this another minute. If I don't see any other questions, Denise, Dustin, and Derek, you are free to go.
Chelsea, I think that question that someone asked about Google Sheets or Google versus Excel today was an excellent question, because not everyone is in the Microsoft product. And if we do have some of those TechCred Google courses specifically related to those things, I think that may be something we want to look into here with the credits and whatnot, because that is the competing product. And I that was a great question. I hadn't even considered the Google angle of those products as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we'll have to have someone on our learning team go through some more of the classes. Amber did the initial review of it, but I think Tiffany and Mark could maybe take a look at those as well.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. We'll just have to get a list and everything over to them.
Chelsea, do you have the latest spreadsheet of all of the TechCred courses?
I don't. Was there a link? Did we have a link put in here?
Not for that document,
No.
but I have a spreadsheet I can send over to you. And actually, when that question came through about Google, that's where I pulled that number of Google TechCred approved courses, because I have the credential list in a spreadsheet form. And then I also noticed that specifically under Sheets, our instructor, Mike Frank, was labeled as a class that we could deliver. So I knew that we have those are TechCred available courses that we do teach, but it is not on the list of the OSCPA CPE credit listing. But I can send you over, if you don't have it, I can send you over the same spreadsheet I was looking at, and then you can take a little bit more of a deep dive in just looking at the TechCred credentials that are available, and then you'll also be able to identify especially the ones that we offer.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. I just put my email into the host of panelist chat. If you want to send that over to me, I can get Tiffany and Mark involved in it for them to skim through that list and everything. Yeah, that'd be great.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I did not have your email.
No problem. I did just get a CPE question. Yes, if you got 3 out of the 4 attendance checks, you should be good to go. You just need to answer at least 70% of them, so you should be good. I'll be pushing a magic button at the end once we close this down, and then your certificates will come through.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it's so
The
nice
magic
with a
button.
little magic button just runs that CPE, writes it back to Zoom, and pulls in their credits. So it's great.
That's really neat. That's really neat.
All right. I'm not seeing any other questions. Do you guys have any questions for myself
I
or
just
Greg?
want to thank you very much. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Derek, for joining.
Yeah,
I hope
thank you.
we had a lot of accurate slides, and if you found any issues with them, let us know.
That's great. Yeah, appreciate getting the word out with the program. Thanks for having me. Everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks,
All right.
Derek. It was nice to meet you today too.
Yeah, nice meeting you, Greg.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Thank you,
All
everyone.
Okay.
All right. Well, you guys have a good
Bye-bye.
rest of your day.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a good one. As for everyone else, we're going to go ahead and close this down. Have a good rest of your day.